Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dad's Making a Difference podcast. Today I'm having a conversation with Andy Murphy. He founded the Secure Dad back in 2016 after he realized that every parent is a protector. And we're going to dive into that today. And specifically, we are going to get into the conversation of how do we protect our kids in an age where they are connecting online? When is too soon to have a cell phone? When is it appropriate to have social media? And how do we as parents navigate the conversations with our kids in a way that helps them grow, helps them learn, and protects them as they enter into the world of online connection, whether that's through games, social media, or through phone use? This is a valuable episode for all of us dads who have at the front of our mind, how do we keep our kids safe in the online world? This episode with Andy Murphy on the Dad's Making a Difference podcast starts right now. Andy, welcome to the Dad's Making a Difference podcast. Great to have you on today.
Hey, Cam, thank you so much for getting to sit down and talk with you, and also to be able to hopefully educate, your audience some about what we need to do as dads to protect our family.
I love it. This really is an episode when I was thinking about prepping for this, about learning
Yeah.
ways that we can protect our families, and an episode that's not about scaring people, but
Yeah.
informing people of what's out there. And I thought about how this could be an episode about access, the access that we give others to ourselves and to our families and to our kids. So excited to have you on. This is your wheelhouse. This is your area of expertise. So Andy, why don't we start by just having you share a little bit of that expertise with us? How did you get to be the guy behind the Secure Dad?
Sure. So I started this in 2016, and I had been working at a job, and God had just said to me, "Hey, man, you're going to do something different with your life." And I thought, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll just go be like an office manager or something." And so, a couple of months of just kind of stumbling around, and then all of a sudden, I realized, family safety is very important to me.
Mhm.
But my safety has always been important to me. So when I was young, I was worried about myself. When I got married, I realized the responsibility of my safety and now my wife's safety fell on my shoulders.
Mhm.
So then when I became a dad, it just exploded. And now I realize, okay, here's this little tiny person. I'm in charge of protecting this little person.
Yeah.
And so I realize there's a lot of guys out there who are having the same thoughts I am, the same questions. So I decided to, take my mindset that's always been security oriented and put it to work to helping other dads and other family members to protect themselves, online, in person, and in public. So that's kind of where this all began. I don't ever pretend to be, you know, um, an expert who knows everything about
Yeah.
everything, because I'm not. I am a dad who is trying his absolute best and sharing my journey along the way with people, and that really resonates with folks because I've done a lot, I've seen a lot, I've had the opportunity to train with a bunch of amazing people, and I just always want to be able to share what I have learned, give credit where it's due, and just help people to not I don't want to sell fear. And that's what I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you and
Yeah.
we're on the same page there. I'm not selling fear, I'm selling empowerment. And
Mhm.
I want you to be able to walk away from this conversation feeling a whole lot better about your abilities in protecting the people that you love.
I love it. I'm curious. You said you've learned from a lot of people, you've seen a lot of stuff or a lot of stuff. Is there any like specific things that you heard, you experienced, you saw that put you on this trajectory that you're like, this is what I'm going to focus on. This is really important to me. Uh, Unfortunately, I've spoken to some guys who something has happened to them
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
shifted their viewpoint. But for you,
Sure.
when you go to your website and you go through your work, you have like how to stay safe in so many different scenarios. So there's this overriding theme of safety. And so that's why I'm so curious as to what
Sure.
led you on that path.
Yeah, so I've always been one of these people who's just been I always keep people, at arm's length,
Mhm.
until I really have earned trust with you.
Yeah.
But living in the United States, I was in high school when the Columbine shooting happened in Colorado. Now, I was, states and states away. And that was a big thing, you know, in the event of, our country. And I think really around the world about how just terrible that event was. We went to school the next day, and that's all we talked about. And it kind of became this thing. And even in my community where I was living at the time, going to high school, we had had a school shooting in our community already. And I started to realize that, while we had a police officer at our school, that if somebody in my classroom started, a violent attack, that police officer wasn't going to get there in time.
Mhm.
And so that's when I learned that my safety was my own responsibility.
Mm.
And that is a huge wake up call for a lot of people. Some people never have that wake up call. And so that is where I started to understand, okay, if something goes wrong, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
I have to take action, even if the action is run. If it's as simple as run, that's what I have to do.
Mm.
And so a lot of people, they never think about that. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've never, well, I've been in a few situations that were life threatening, but usually those were just like car accidents or things like that. But there, a lot of people, when they come face to face with an attacker, they realize, oh, it's too late. I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. And I don't want, anybody who's listening to this conversation to feel that way.
Yeah. Excellent. Being prepared is so important. And you mentioned, when once you had more responsibility than just yourself. You became a husband, you become a father, you realize that that responsibility now goes beyond yourself and you feel
Mhm.
responsible for protecting those around you, those you love. And right now we think about, yeah, you gave an example of course, we want our kids to be safe in school. I want my kids, I work in a school, I want to be safe there. But I think there are some concerns that we have as dads right now about where our kids are safe and where they're not. And
Mhm.
for me, and I told you this on our pre-call, and I'm glad that you want to dive into this. I really think about safety when we can't see what's going on. Safety when our kids are on devices, safety when our kids are online, those types of environments where our kids are learning to interact more and more often. It's really their third space. I think about you and I, we were in high school probably around the same time
Yeah,
because I remember that event. And then, but our third spaces were, heading out of school, hanging out with the guys, maybe going,
right.
for me, I'm in Canada, going to the rink or going to shoot hoops or doing something. We had a third space. And right now, our kids' third spaces tend to be online, which is scary in itself that that's where they're
Right.
connecting. So are you good with diving into some of this online
Absolutely.
safety stuff today?
Absolutely, man.
And I want to start by just thinking about some of the questions that we need to be asking ourselves as dads. Because as I was preparing for our conversation today, I was like, man, I don't really know what questions to ask myself to know if my kids are safe.
Right.
Um, the school age kids getting on devices. So, what are some of the questions or thoughts that dads should have to start centering this conversation around? Some things that they need to be aware of.
Sure. So I had a conversation on my podcast with a very smart man by the name of Chris Hadnagy, and he is the big social engineering guy. Like he is one of these people. He's a red teamer. It's his job. Companies pay him to break into their businesses.
Okay.
So he is very good at conversation, and he's also a very good tech person. So he runs a great foundation called the Innocent Lives Foundation, and he helps track down everybody from cyberbullies
Hmm.
to pedophiles across the globe, hands
Wow.
those files over to law enforcement, and they do their thing.
Mhm.
So, in my conversation with Chris, he told me everywhere your kids want to be online, the predators are already there.
Mm.
And that was a sobering thought.
Yeah.
And in thinking about what Chris said, it makes complete sense that this is the natural way that predators work. If you think about a cheetah, it wants to, eat an impala, it has to go to where the impala is. It has to go find it, where the impala is gathering. Well, our kids, their new watering hole is online. and
Yeah.
it's going to be Roblox, it's going to be Fortnite, it's going to be, you know, whatever social media app is all the rage from TikTok all the way down to, you know, Instagram. And
Yeah.
so the predators have to start their hunt where the kids already are. So if you wonder, oh, is this website safe? Chances are it's not. Is this app safe? Not really. And it's not the app's fault. It's not, you know, the game's fault. It's how people are manipulating users on that platform.
Mm,
So that's really what you need to be aware of. So when you understand that, you can start to really get, okay, this is how I need to start educating my kids
mm,
on forming digital relationships. And one of the things that I like to tell people about is, and you said this so well in that third space. The third space is online because our third space was going and playing basketball or going to work or whatever it was.
yeah.
And so in these games like Roblox and Fortnite, they have like digital friends
Hmm.
because that's what your contact list is called. That's all it is. It's a contact list, but some game company somewhere decided, oh, we're not going to call this contacts. We're going to call this friends.
Right.
And so the idea of friend has completely changed for this new generation. This digital generation sees a friend as somebody that they've never been in the same room with, someone they don't know what their face looks like, someone
Yeah.
they've had very little contact with. Whereas for you and me, you know, the threshold for friendship was very high.
Yep.
And so like you got to see how people responded in real time to jokes or to being sick or to whatever it was. Our kids don't have that. And so I think our kids are much more accepting of people on very little credentials. And
Yeah.
that's something that we as dads really have to work on with our kids, let them know what a real friend is, demonstrate what a real friend is in your own life. Say, hey, you know, our neighbor next door, well, he's my friend, and I know this because we've been through this together. This is what real friendship is. Show that, demonstrate that in your own life. So that's everywhere. That's the digital world that we live in now. We've got to define boundaries and we've got to define friendships and what it really means to be a good digital citizen.
Yeah. I think about growing up, people say, "Oh, they're your friend." Well, I wouldn't call them a friend. They're more like an acquaintance, right? We say that all
Right.
the time as adults. I've
Right.
I work with youth all the way up to the 18 years old. I've never heard somebody say that. I've never heard a
Mm,
youth say that. Well, they're not really a friend. They're more like an acquaintance. They'll
right.
say, well, I can't even remember what they say, but it's more like they have their close knit friends and
Mhm.
then they have the periphery friends, but everybody's a friend.
Right.
Everybody's a connection, everybody's a contact. And yeah, there's no accident behind the psychology of calling you that contact list friends. The same with
Right.
social media and in
Right.
games and in
Mhm.
communities. So now we want to educate our kids on what friendship actually looks like. And so, how do we enter into conversations with our sons and with our daughters who are growing up to say, here are some examples of what a friend is. Here are some things to look for online to start, filtering through who is this person? What are they actually after? Why are they asking me these questions? What are some of the things that we can help our kids now that we're dads and we're like, okay, let's have the friendship conversation. What are some things that we can enter into conversation with our kids on about friendship?
Sure, Cam. I'm really glad you're asking this question because a lot of times as parents, we know we need to do something,
Yeah.
but we just don't know how to start that conversation. And that's the biggest thing. Because even as parents, we're like afraid to talk to our kids about some stuff. I felt that. You know, it's my part of my platform is helping educate parents, but sometimes when I've had to have these big conversations, it's been like, ooh, like how do we do this? How do we do that sort of thing? And so like you have to be brave as a parent to
Hmm.
start these conversations because one, you don't know where they're going to go, and two, you don't know how your kid is going to respond. So I think with friends, here's an example. So my son got this new game around Christmas. It's a racing game, and so he got a digital gift that was from a friend, and I was like, okay, hold up, you know, who is this? Because predators will send gifts, digital gifts to children to help form a relationship
Hmm.
and start the chain of manipulation. So I'm like, hey, wait a minute, who's this friend? Who is this
Yeah.
person? And so come to find out it was just AI. It was part of the game because he is not allowed to have friends that are not people that he knows. So I
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay. So what I would encourage you to do is when you have your kids who are playing online or they're on social media, say, hey, who is this person that, made this comment? Tell me
Yeah.
about this person. What do you know? And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I just met through so and so. So I'm like, oh, so like this isn't like your friend from school or from church, right? This is like an online friend. Like, yeah. So, what makes a good friend?
Mm.
What makes this person's opinion matter to you? How did you meet this person? And a lot of times the verbalization of that answer will help them understand, well, wait a minute, maybe this person really isn't a friend. Or
Yeah.
maybe I really don't know this person altogether. Or it's going to come up, oh, I have a great relationship with this person, and this is a really positive thing in my life. And then you get to learn something about your kid.
Mhm.
So I always try to ask my son about his friends. I try to remember their names, ask them what they did at school, and he'll tell me like they did goofy, like funny middle school stuff because that's where my kid is right now. And so it's like, okay, he's got a good group of friends. They're not doing weird stuff. Well, they're doing like weird stuff, but not like strange stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, this is good. These are healthy relationships. And so then I can say, okay, well, this person that's online, do they treat you like your friend Joe treats
Mm.
you? Well, not exactly. Well, do you think you really need to give that person the same amount of attention and respect that you give to Joe?
Mm.
Well, probably not. So those are the kind of ways it's just like, hey, tell me about your friend. What are you doing? I saw that they made this comment. I saw that this person, you and this person uh played this game together. How did it go? Did you win? That sort of stuff. So just really having the conversation of what are you doing? Take an interest in them. And you don't have to sit there. The last thing you ever need to do is sit your kid down, knee to knee, make eye contact and say, "Tell me about your friends."
Yeah.
Because that is
But
not going to go well.
yeah.
So it's really like, if you're in the car driving, or I make my son help make dinner, like, hey,
Yeah.
we talk like while we're making dinner, that sort of thing. Just make it sound casual when it comes up. You may have like a plan of how you want this conversation to go,
Yeah.
but don't make it sound like a planned conversation.
Yeah. We talked about similar things on this podcast before of maybe the Jedi mind tricks with our kids to get them into conversations so we can get that information. And some people will feel bad about being on an information search, but I believe that our role as parents is to have as
Hmm.
much information about our kids as we can, one to protect them, one to help them grow. And
Right.
so
Right.
they're going to come to you with some question or navigating some barrier in their life. And the more you know about them and how they process through stuff in that thought process and conversation, you're going to be able to help them better. And I think the example
Absolutely.
you just gave, making food together and just having a conversation about, hey, tell me a little bit about this person. Oh, what do you do? What do you like? What do you enjoy together? Um, Extremely helpful. So thank you for diving into that. Hey guys, I wanted to take a moment and talk about our community of DMD brothers in the DMD Mastermind. We are men who help each other to stay focused and intentional in our pursuits of personal, professional, physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual growth. We are a community of men who bring courage, wisdom, and transparency to unfiltered conversations that challenge us to be more impactful men, to be dads making a difference. We do this through our online and in-person events where men come together to speak into each other's lives and then turn around and do the deep work to create change in their families, in their businesses, and in the community around them. If you are wondering if this community might be right for you, you can find more information on the DMD Mastermind, and you can also book a call directly with me at dmdmastermind.com. Now, let's get back to our show. You mentioned something that piqued my interest there. You said middle school age. And so
Yeah.
this is at the front of mind for me right now because I hear everyone in my class has a phone. I'm
Yep.
like, yeah,
Yep.
but 12, 13, nope. Like for me, and full transparency, I worked in middle schools for 7.5 years,
Hmm.
then went to elementary school, and then I spent the last 8.5 in a high school. But middle school, I'm like, man, everyone's got a phone right now. Like you just got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, from what you've learned, the people that you've spoken with and have worked with, when is there even a line where it's too soon or it's time?
Yeah, well, usually I say elementary is too soon. However, if you are in a situation of like divorce and you're co-parenting, a court may say you have to have a phone for your kids so that the other parent can contact that child without having to go through the former
Mm,
spouse. So
yeah.
there are times where, like, okay, yeah, your kid may need a phone early on, but they don't have to have access to it all the time, that sort of thing. They don't have to be on it all the time. If it's just for talking to the parent,
Yeah.
let it be, for that. So generally, I don't think there is an age where it's like, oh, automatically you're 12 years old. Here's a smartphone that can go anywhere in the world. Have fun.
Yeah. Right.
That's not the thing. I think for parents, like we will know when our kid is mature enough for it. We
Yeah.
will know. For some kids, that is, 13. For other kids, that's 25.
Right.
So, it's
Yeah.
it's really gonna be, are they ready for it?
Yeah.
And how are you what I tell people with kids who are wanting to get them phones, when you get a phone, it is a family phone. It is
Mm,
not theirs. You pay
yeah.
for it as the
Yeah.
parent. You pay for all the services and the case that comes in and all that sort of stuff. You say, "Hey, this is our family phone. You have the privilege of using it at times. If your
Mhm.
behavior is good, you can keep this privilege. If the behavior is bad, the privilege goes away."
Yep.
So I really encourage people psychologically. Here's a Jedi mind trick: don't refer to it as their phone.
Yeah.
Because, oh, this is my phone. This is my property. These are my rights. And you say, no,
No.
not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think that's just kind of a trick to show that the possession of the phone belongs to the parent, and as
Yeah.
long as their behavior is good, they can use it. I also suggest that you put a monitoring software on there, like
Mm,
Bark is a really good one. I TrueMe is another good one. They make a phone that will actually only have on it what you want on it. A
mm,
TrueMe phone cannot have a social media app on it. It can only go to certain websites that you approve, and you can really um, customize it to do what you want it to do. Same with Bark; they also have a phone.
yeah.
So I would say, if you're looking at a first phone for a kid, make sure that it has those parental controls on it,
Yeah.
and that you know how it works, and that they know how it works, so they can still text with their friends, but you have a good idea of what's going on, that you can't just take an old phone and hand it to a kid and assume that the world is going to treat them well, because it's not.
Right. Yep. I agree. Navigating that right now, what we did, because my wife and I were talking about a house phone, and my kids
Mhm.
are like, "What's a house phone?" you know, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll tell you what it was. It was attached to the wall, had a long 20-foot curly cord, and we used
Yes.
to skip rope over it when my mom was on the phone, like that's what a house
Uh-huh.
phone is, but no one has a landline anymore. And so when we
Right.
thought about, our kids were getting older, and I think about friends calling the house and, them wanting to connect with other kids. So our house phone, that's what we call it. It's a house phone, is an
Mhm.
old cell phone,
Yep.
one of our old cell phones that doesn't have a case because it's already all smashed. So they don't really
Right.
want to carry it around anyway because it's already smashed. But that's the house phone,
Yep.
and it's linked, and they know it's linked to my account. And so I said, and it's very clear, this is our house phone. You're free to use it. You can text your friends, set up your rides, do that types of things. There's nothing else on here. Um, you won't be able, you don't need to use the internet on here. You can use the computer that's in the living room, which is in a
Right.
shared
Right.
space.
Yep.
And that's the language. And so if it's like, hey, where's the house phone? Oh, it's in my room. Why do you have the house phone in your room?
Yeah. Mhm.
I just forgot. I just forgot. Okay. And thankfully, my oldest is in middle school, is she's pretty responsible to the point where it comes upstairs, goes in the drawer, 7 o'clock each night, we're good to go. But that's going to change, like the
Right.
kids change, and I've seen teenagers develop, and even the smartest best kids go through periods of time where they push back. And
Oh,
so
yeah. Yeah,
glad,
yeah.
I'm glad that you shared that, just the language around what the phone is, who it belongs to, the purpose of it, is really important because it is a very powerful tool and we use it. I use it very powerfully. Like I do a lot of things from my device, um,
Hmm.
things that a 12-year-old does not need to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point here. I like the idea of calling it a house phone that multiple kids have access to it. But one of the things that really struck me with what you were saying is, making sure that, or they are going to push back. They are going to push
Mm,
back at some point. That is kids. It's growing up. I push back, you push back, I'm sure. Um, when the pushback comes and the first mistake comes, you're going to be upset about it, but also be thankful for it
yeah.
because they are making mistake while
Okay.
still under your roof. And I want, like, my son, don't tell him I said this, but he's really a good, smart kid. I
Ooh,
love
yeah.
him because I'm his dad, but I like him because he's a good person. And like I'm almost to the point, like, dude, you got to start messing up. Like you're
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
Like you got to mess up a little bit more here because like you need to learn some stuff. And I can't necessarily just punish you for not doing something, mess up a little bit more. So like, yeah, just when those opportunities arise, yeah, they're gonna make you mad, they're gonna make you frustrated, but also just be thankful that you are able to be there to correct it.
Yeah. I love that. That's the same filter I use when I'm talking to other people's kids at the school. So it's
Uh,
they come in and I'm the vice principal, so they come in and it's often really positive stuff, but every once in a while somebody makes a poor decision and the first thing will be like, "Oh, well, you messed up, but I'm so glad you made that decision now and not 4 years
mm,
from now
right,
because there's two things." And I think about the same with my kids and I've had this conversation with them. Well, they're like, "Are you upset?" Well, I'm disappointed, but I'm also glad that you made that decision now where I can work with you on it as opposed to when you're,
right,
16, 17. There's
right.
catastrophic failure and non-catastrophic failure. We're still living life in non-catastrophic failure zone right now. So let's navigate these conversations together. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen later on where it can really impact your life and really impact the other things
Hmm.
that you want to do. So I'm glad that you use that filter. Be happy for it.
Yeah.
Dad, you're listening to this right now. Your kids are going to push back. Their kids make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. We know that as men, we need to, be vulnerable at times and apologize and have open conversations. And we can expect the same from our kids and come to them and say, I'm glad we're having this conversation now and
Right.
I can help you through this. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Um, what are some other things that we need to be aware of as dads, as parents, as our kids? They have their device now. Now,
Hmm.
maybe they're 15, they're 16, they're starting to get more into social media. Where are some things that or tools that we can use to just ensure that our kids are safe? Because that's our role as parents, is not to just say, "Hey, have fun with this device and connect to the world," but to make sure that they're safe. What are some tools we can use?
Sure. So two things come to mind. One is helping them understand that their personal identity is very important. Their privacy is important.
Yeah.
So you want to, if you decide that hey, they're ready for social media and that like they want Instagram, we'll go with Instagram. Say okay, you can start an Instagram page, but it's going to be a private account. You cannot have a contact on here or a friend. It's not somebody you don't actually know.
Mm,
You need to understand that we will be monitoring what you're doing online so that when I open this app, I will be able to go through it and see what's going on and see what you're liking and the conversations that you're having. So just understand that that's going to be, spot checked every once in a while. And then let them know that the content that they share is crucial
mm,
because what they post online will stay there forever.
yeah.
Even if it's a joke, that joke may not age well. Like, gosh, think about where we were in 2016 and where we are now in like 2023.
Oh,
Like
right.
the humor of the internet, the
Yeah.
perspective of people has changed completely.
Yeah.
So, like, I tell people, our presidential candidates are one day going to be judged by their posts that they made in high school, on whatever social media app it was.
Yeah.
We're going to be that bad off at some point. Like something that your kid posts in, middle school may keep them from college or something like that. We may come to I think we will come to that point. We
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
Cam. So help them to understand that what they post is very important. I also want to strongly caution people, and this is for parents and this is for teenagers, not to post a whole lot of pictures of their home where they live
Mm,
and their face. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. People want to take selfies.
yeah.
I've recently done a whole lot of work on deep fakes. And
Mm,
what a deep fake is a real picture taken with a real video clip, but the face of the person from the picture is then put on the video clip to create a fake piece of content.
yeah.
So what is happening right now is people, very bad people, are taking pictures of teenage girls and they're taking those faces and they are putting them on existing nude photos
Mm,
and they are creating fake nude photos. This is called nudifying or nudification.
yeah.
And so it's a very powerful blackmail tool. It's also meant for cyberbullying. It's meant for all sorts of creepy stuff that we don't necessarily want to talk about now. So, an innocent picture of your daughter posted of her 16th birthday
Mhm.
could be the picture that is used to create a fake sexual image. And I know you're saying I don't want to have to sit here and censor my child's face. I don't want to have to do these sorts of things. But for right now, this is just kind of the stumbling block that we have as parents.
Yeah.
And so it could be the picture that we post. It could be
Mhm.
a picture that a friend posts, so or a family member. So you have to really talk to your kids about, hey, your personal image, your likeness is your brand, and you don't want that to end up being used against you. Because sometimes in these instances where somebody has created a deep fake of a teenager, they'll say, "Hey, here's the picture. If you don't pay me $100 in the next 24 hours, I'm going to release this picture that looks real enough
Yeah.
that is going to cause you a lot of embarrassment." Even though after some scrutiny, people will be able to understand that it is a
Yeah.
deep fake,
Yeah.
the damage is still going to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're going to say, "Hey, here's this deep fake picture. You send me a real nude picture, or I'm going to release this one." So
Right.
that pressure is immense.
Yeah.
So in those moments, you have to establish a relationship with your kid to say, if something bad like this happens and you don't know what to do, come talk to me immediately
Yeah.
and let me know that there's something big that is happening and you partner with your kid to work through that.
Yeah.
A lot of times in these situations, there may be a division between the child, the parent, and the predator, where it's this three-way battle for what's going on. It's not. It's you as a family as one unit
Yeah.
versus that predator as one unit. And
Yeah.
then you bring in law enforcement. Trying to figure out the correct word to call her. Her name is Alyssa Gibiorchek, and she is in charge of Cyber Night Watch. And her big deal is hunting down human traffickers, across the globe. And she's very, very good at it. And she told me at the end of one of my podcast conversations that the relationship that you have with your kids so that they can come to you in a time where they absolutely need you and not feel judged is going to be the thing that saves their life.
Mm.
That's
Wow.
it. You
Yeah.
can get all the software in the world. You can, lock down all the parental controls, whatever. The relationship between parent and child is going to be what saves their life.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. It's powerful to think about as a dad in our reactions in our relationship building and our conversations and everything that we need to navigate as we go through this. And it circles back to the way you say enter into those conversations when your kids do make little mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Be part of
Mm-hmm.
that together and be part of that as a family. Andy, this has been a good conversation. I want to keep going on this, but
I know.
we're running out of time. My question for you is this. You're a dad right now, and you're seeing so many of these things in the world change. And you seem to be at like the front end of the knowledge. Like you have the people you're connected to, you have your podcast where you're talking to people who are on the front end of this. Um, as a dad right now, what's one area that you are being super vigilant about or really growing in that you're maybe nerding out about right now?
Well, I've done a lot of work on deep fakes here of late, so that's one of the things that's been, in the front of my mind. But also what we've talked about with when it's appropriate for your kid to get a device.
Yeah.
And so like my son has the thing about, oh yeah, like a lot of people have phones, my son doesn't. He has access to a phone when he goes out with his friends,
Yeah.
or like he goes to an event, something like that. So kind of like the house phone, like you
Yeah.
have. So he goes with that. And so I'm trying to help him understand that his mental development, his emotional development happens outside of a smart device.
That's
And
good.
so, like, our children are a precious resource that the world needs. And we need to start, I think, with this first wave of smart technology, we didn't quite know what we were doing as parents, or our parents didn't know what they were doing necessarily. So now I think we start to understand the neurological and emotional issues that a dependency on a device has.
Yep.
So I really want to encourage people, give yourself this gift of digital distance with your kids. You know, find that find that area between making them this digital social outcast, but also not being addicted to it. Find that zone that works for them, because that's going to help them in a lot of ways. Sure, they're going to need to use the internet to submit a project or find out something or watch a video clip of some historical thing, but also they don't, there's a whole lot out there. I think there's more on the internet that kids don't need to see than there is. So set those boundaries, help your kids grow to mature people who will make good decisions, even if they fail.
Mhm.
Even in that discipline, show them love, show them grace, help them to make good decisions, understand what went wrong, so that as they grow up, the decisions and the mistakes aren't so great, because they've had a good foundation that thankfully just didn't involve being addicted to a cell phone.
Yeah. Appreciate you sharing. Andy, if somebody wants to learn more about your work and dive into other work that you do, because on your website you've got ways to stay safe in like 14 different areas, and it's
Yeah.
not all online, which is really great. So where can people find out more about you, listen to your podcast?
Sure. Everything is at thesecuredad.com. One of the things that I get asked about a lot, and this is a free resource that I've created for everyone, I get questions about the dark web. And so
Mm,
that's something that we didn't even have the opportunity to talk about. Well,
yeah.
I've created a parent guide for that. If you go to thesecuredad.com/dark web, dark web being one word, there is a free, I think it's like 10 pages, that tells you everything that a parent needs to know about the dark web, and what the real threats are, and then the things that, like, oh, this is not as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be for my kid to stumble upon, that sort of thing. So it's going to kind of coach you through what the dark web is, how to talk about that with your kids and all of that. So yeah, everything is there at thesecuredad.com. I have the Secure Dad podcast, where I'm on episode 265 that
Amazing.
I'm working on right now, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah, excellent. Andy, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here and sharing a ton of value with the guys who are listening to this right now, who might be in the thick of device use and internet access with their kids. So appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking time away from your family.
Yeah, thank you, Cam. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Not only, just talking to your audience, but talking to you. This has been really good.